Thank you for joining the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston for our weekly online ministers forum. I'm the Reverend D. Scott Cooper, Assistant Minister of Congregational Life. These programs are conversations with community organizers, artists, scholars, religious leaders, and others about how we can collectively address the present crises. Their purpose is to offer members of our community and all who wish to join us online science-based resources. Today I'm joined by James Wooten, Planetarium Astronomer at the Houston Museum of Natural Science and member of our church for nearly 20 years. James presents the awe-inspiring wonders of the stars and galaxies to school children and visitors from all over this planet in our solar system. According to the museum website, the Burke Baker Planetarium opened in 1964 and has presented astronomical programs to millions of visitors. The newly upgraded planetarium enables visitors to fly through the universe, experience the vastness of space, roam planetary surfaces, and navigate asteroid fields. The planetarium's ability to create unique experiences, as well as their access to a global cloud library of content, means visitors will discover something new every time they visit. Well, we've been doing a sermon series on the first UU source that references direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder. I would argue that one of the best places to experience a sense of mystery, wonder, and awe is in a planetarium. So James, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
So before we talk about some of the really cool things happening in the sky and at the museum, why don't you tell us how you became interested in astronomy, how one goes about studying that in school, and how long you've been at the museum?
Well, I've been interested in astronomy since I was about 11 years old. And ironically, I was watching one of those old Batman reruns. Remember the ones from the 60s?
Oh, sure.
Pow, Biv, yeah. The plot for the one I was watching was the Joker was still doing one thing for every sign of the zodiac. And so I found them all in the sky. I wasn't interested in predicting people's personalities, although I read about that too. I was interested in finding the real objects in the sky, real patterns in the sky that corresponded to those names. And from there, I learned the whole sky. And so I got interested in watching the sky since I was about 11 years old. And I just stayed with it. I had an opportunity to pursue it, and I did. And to pursue astronomy, very few colleges teach astronomy or have astronomy majors. So you wind up studying physics. That requires a lot of math and science. So when kids ask how to do what I do, I tell them take all the hardest math and science courses throughout middle school, high school, and college, and then specialize in physics when you're in college. That's what most universities do when they want to teach astronomy. They encourage students to get a background in physics. And to work at the Museum of Natural Science, museums, like many companies, hire from within most often. Therefore, if you want to work at a museum like I do, you have to be in the building when the job opens up. And that means volunteering there and spending time in the building on that basis, which means that when it's time to open a position, they know you and you're in the building and they will hire you, which is very rare. It's hard for a nonprofit institution to make money, in a sense, unless they don't have very many opportunities. But when they do, you need to be in the building so they know who you are and you get the position. I got my bachelor's from MIT and a master's from Rice. And there's always been a partnership between the Space and Science Department at Rice. They've renamed it several times. I think it's now Space, Physics, and Astronomy. And my boss at the Planetarium. The partnership predates me. And so when I got my master's at Rice, I wound up working at the museum because the professor at Rice and my boss at the museum knew each other so well.
That's very cool. So how long ago was that you got that gig?
See, I've been working at the museum so long. I started when years began with one. Can you remember that far back? It was 1995. In fact, next month will be my 26th year.
Oh,
As of February of
congratulations.
this year, yeah, as of next month. 26 years.
Well, you obviously love what you do and you're excited about it. So that's fabulous that you're able to have committed this long to it. So I know the museum has many fascinating exhibits besides the planetarium, and it's actually within walking distance from our church's museum district campus.
That's right.
Now, I know during a typical year, you have millions of visitors to the museum, but this has been, of course, anything but a typical year. So, how has the pandemic affected the museum's ability to operate?
It's been a challenge. The museum closed for a few weeks between mid-March and mid-May of last year. We are open now. We've been open since mid-May, but our attendance, of course, is way down, in particular because school groups aren't coming to the museum and really can't come until the pandemic clears up. So it's been a challenge. We've had to reimagine how we do things at the museum. Now we have these domes that travel outwards. You can't do those either because they're enclosed. We now have an open dish that we're trying to send out as well that will allow us to do it and will be safer, will not be a fully enclosed space. But that's it. And we did lose a lot of employees, but I kept my role there in part because I'm part time for the museum. My full time job is with HISD. That's something I forgot to mention. HISD has a program where fourth graders come to the museum every school morning and we teach them there. So I have two W-2 forms every year, one for HISD and one for the museum. And because I don't cost the museum that much and getting all my benefits HISD, I was able just to get back on a lot quicker than some people who got furloughed earlier this spring. So it's been a challenge. We don't have our attendance back. We won't have it back until the whole thing is resolved, but we're still operating.
Wow. Yeah, I know it's hit virtually all the museums in the museum district hard, and I'm just counting the days until we can get back and enjoy the museums. It's a huge loss to not be able to visit them.
Yeah, we're open. Just make sure if you want to come see us, make sure you wear a face covering the entire time we're here, and come right on in.
Well, that's a good point. So people can still visit. It's just not that as many people are visiting. So they should definitely go to the website and see what hours you're open and grab their face mask and plan to still go visit.
That's correct. And we're still free on Thursdays. The exhibit halls are free on Thursdays after 2. So, and please come. We need more people to come to help support us so we can keep going.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and but before we're done, we're gonna tell people how they can donate. So we definitely want these valuable resources to continue in our community. But not everyone's been lucky enough to even visit a planetarium yet. So describe what a planetarium is and what goes on in a planetarium.
Well, in a planetarium, we simulate the sky you see above your head on a dome. And we show you the sky. We can also show movies about astronomy as well. So we have the basic planetarium show where an operator shows you the sky and says, this is the Big Dipper and that's the North Star. Here are the planets you can see and the constellations you can see. There's always a demand for that basic planetarium show. But in the 21st century, people have much more elaborate productions in the planetarium, and so do we. And we can show movies about various astronomy topics. The advantage of the planetarium dome is that it surrounds you on all sides. So unlike a giant screen like an IMAX, it's all in front of you. In the planetarium, the images above you, also in front of you, to the left and to the right as well. And being able to surround people with visuals actually helps teach astronomy, which is a very abstract concept. In 2016, we renovated the planetarium, fully renovated it, took everything out, and put all new stuff back in. And so if you haven't been in a long time, I encourage people to come back because it's nothing like you've seen before. We haven't been since 2016.
Yeah, I talked about how awe-inspiring a planetarium is, and I think a big part of that is because it does totally surround you. It's like you're being lifted up into the heavens. It's just thrilling. As you said, you not only just show the basic information about which stars are which and what names go to which constellations, but you also have lots of different movies and presentations, and I know those are always changing. So just because you've been there once doesn't mean that you've seen everything. Uh, so people can check the museum website to see what's playing and what's coming up. And I looked at the website and it says you're currently doing a show investigating what many people think are the most mystifying, awe inspiring phenomena in the universe, which are black holes. So tell us all about this show that is all about black holes.
That's one of our more popular shows, and so popular we've had it in some form. I guess now 16 years. We started in 2005 because people always want to come learn about black holes. It's narrated by Q of Star Trek. If you're a Star Trek nerd, the actor that plays Q narrates it. We've updated it, and they made a shorter, leaner version of it to fit our schedule better just this year. There's just so much demand for that. No matter how much we try to advertise anything else, there's always a demand to watch black holes, because that's a concept that's hard to even explain. And we do our best in our show, but people always want to know more about it.
Well, I know it is hard to explain. So if you were just trying to get me to understand kind of the concept of it quickly, how would you explain to me what a black hole is?
A black hole is a region of space where there's so much mass per volume that nothing can escape. So nothing that's inside the black hole can come out of it. And that's why we call it black, because it won't give off any light. Light cannot escape a black hole. Now, it doesn't mean you'll be sucked in. It means that once you cross the boundary, you can't come back out. But if you don't cross the boundary of the black hole, you can stay outside and orbit like anything else. Just like Earth orbits the sun without falling in, things can orbit a black hole without falling in necessarily. But once you cross the boundary called the event horizon, you can never come back out of the black hole. And we believe they are the results of the explosions of very, very massive stars, at least 10 times the mass of our sun. So our sun will never become a black hole.
That is so interesting. When you said orbit a black hole, I'd never even thought about that concept before.
You can orbit, anything that's massive can have things orbiting it. And black holes are certainly very massive objects, and other objects can orbit them without falling in, just as Earth orbits the sun without falling in. So like I tell my students, black holes don't suck. They're cool.
Yeah, because I don't know if I've ever heard that, but I just assume that things kind of are pulled into a black hole,
Yeah.
and you're saying that's not it at all.
The part that people are misstating is that once something crosses into the boundary, so if you're going towards the black hole and you cross the boundary of the black hole itself, then you have to go all the way to the center. There's impossible to go any of the way. It's as impossible to go away from the black hole center as it's impossible to go from now to Saturday, for example. You just can't do it. But if you're not inside the black hole, then it's just any other massive object. If you're going to the side of it, you might end up orbiting it. Go around it several times without falling in. Just like the base motel. If you go in the base motel, then you're gonna die. But if you drive by it, you're fine. Yeah.
I love that analogy. Anytime you can combine Alfred Hitchcock and astronomy, I'm happy. That's fabulous. Well, I learned a lot about black holes, and I haven't even seen the show yet, just from your description. Thank you about that. But of course, you do lots of other shows, and I thought of a quote by Dr. King when I read about one, and he said, and I'm abbreviating his quote a lot here, that science investigates and religion interprets. The two are not rivals. And I think that's something that you espouse, is that we can have both of those things, and they're not. There may be a tension, but they're certainly not rivals. So over the holidays, you had a production called Mystery of the Christmas Star. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that presentation and that mystery.
Well, yeah, we always have demand every Christmas time for a Christmas star show. That's been one of our staples. And the prevailing theory, well, of course, there's always the consideration that holy books describing miracles may not correspond to anything in nature. So we have to leave that open. There may not be anything real that we can explain that would be the Christmas star. But a theory would be the repeated conjunctions of two planets. According to this theory, the Magi would be astrologers who were interested in the motions of the planets and saw them as omens, and would have followed the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, which happened 3 times in a year, from the east to the west, as it came from Babylon over to Bethlehem. But it wouldn't have been a brilliant object in the sky like most postcards show. Rather, we're thinking if it's anything at all that we can explain, it is a conjunction of two planets, not remarkable to anyone who's not an astrologer, but astrologers in Babylon saw that as a portent and traveled eastward as a result.
Interesting. So the average shepherd in the field may not have noticed the alignment of these planets, but certainly someone who had been studying the night sky would have noticed
Yes.
it and be fascinated by it, it sounds like.
And that was interesting because on the 21st of last month, we did have the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. They were so close, they appeared in the same field of view in a telescope. And a lot of people were calling that the Christmas star.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten
Right.
that happened last month, but
Yeah.
and I didn't even put two and two together and think about that.
Of course, the conjunction we're talking about was not that close, just happened 3 times over a year. So it wouldn't have been anything that people would notice that they were lay people, but we're thinking the Magi may have been astrologers who would have cared about portents indicated by the planets. And of course, miraculous things don't have to correspond to anything in nature or even have really occurred at all.
Sure. Yeah, I've heard before that people think that the Magi were astronomers and fascinated by those things.
Or astrologers, because back then there was a very little difference between the two. The ability to
Oh,
do actual science is relatively new. Most people concerned with the sky in antiquity were concerned with the positions of the planets and the reading omens in them.
well, that's interesting. Give us a good. What are the difference between those two?
Astronomers are scientists, astrologers are not. And in other words, scientists are looking for understanding actual properties of objects, whereas astrologers are looking to see portents and predict the future. And in antiquity, our ability to actually study the properties of planets and stars is very limited. So most of the investigations of stars and planets were about seeing patterns and predicting the future with them. Only with the telescope, really, could we actually look at celestial bodies and learn their real properties, as opposed to using them as try to predict the future. So astronomy is a science, astrology is not, and that's the difference.
Very interesting. Well, and speaking of telescopes, as well as planetariums, stargazers can go to actual observatories, which tell me if my definition is wrong, but they're essentially giant telescopes to experience the night sky.
Yeah, most observatories have telescopes, and there also is a place for people to work. The George Observatory is specifically geared for non-professionals. It's a place for public astronomy. No other observatories, such as McDonald, will have public nights, but they really are there for professionals to come and do actual science. Our observatory in Brassens Bend State Park is for the public to visit and look at the stars. Although we do have science students go there, we had science students going there, and hopefully we'll have it again. Our observatory was closed down for renovation in 2019. We were about to reopen a year ago, but then the pandemic hit and put the brakes on that. We've rescheduled an opening for spring break of this year.
Oh.
So stay tuned for spring break of 2021. We'll try to get the observatory open again for visitation.
Spring break 2021. Okay. Just to clarify, the George Observatory that you just referenced, it's near Needville, Texas, and it's the observatory that's affiliated with your museum, right?
That's right. There's a satellite facility at the Museum of Natural Science. And once we get it back up, it will be open to the public on Saturday nights. That was the rule. And you come to the Brazos Bend State Park, and the observatory is inside the park. And then there, of course, is a fee to go into the park,
Sure.
and there's a fee to look through the main telescopes, but not to come onto the deck. And volunteers, we have 3 main telescopes outside of George. Volunteers bring their own telescopes and set them out outside on the deck. And those who live for free, there's a fee to look in our main telescopes within domes. And we're working out how to do it all safely under the pandemic conditions. And again, we're planning to open it up spring break of this year.
That's great. I've not been to that one. I happen to have gone to the observatory at U, which is the UU Retreat Center, and was fascinated with that one. So I'm sure the George Observatory is just at least as good. I imagine it's more powerful. I don't know that much about the telescopes that are there, but because of knowing about that one, I know that we have a couple of eclipses coming up over Texas, and actually kind of happening right over top of us, is my understanding, coming up.
Well, the most exciting one is April 8th of 2024, and that one will be total in Central Texas. In other words, that the path takes I-35, not 45, unfortunately. So if you're anywhere over in the Austin, San Antonio area, especially western part of Austin, San Antonio, up in the hill country, so places like Bernie and Kerrville, well placed for observing this, all the way up to the Metroplex, and then it goes off to the northeast. It winds up in Indianapolis and Cleveland and Buffalo, and it winds up going off in southern Quebec. But that's the path of the moon's shadow, that is, on April 8th, 2024. And we're making plans to observe that from Fredericksburg. A bunch of us from our department will be planning to travel to Fredericksburg and observe that. Again, that's April 8th in 3 years. That's a total eclipse of the sun. In Houston on that day, you will see an almost total eclipse. The eclipse will be about 99%.
Wow.
That's still, though, not the same. You have to be 100% to see so many cool effects of a total eclipse, whether it's the brightest planets and stars coming out in the middle of the day. You can watch the shadow approach, and you can watch it leave. You can see animals who will think it's night and will begin to behave like night is beginning. All kinds of things you can see during a total eclipse that you can't see even if it's only 99%. And so but if you can't travel to the hill country or to the Metroplex on April 8th, 2024, it's a Monday, by the way, then you can see an almost total eclipse from right here. But if you're able to travel over to the hill country area or to the Metroplex area, it's worth your while to do so.
Oh, I'm really excited about this now. So once it begins getting dark and then gets really 100%, how long does that last?
That depends on the eclipse. This one's going to be about 4 minutes. And darkness, by the way, it's not like night, it's like twilight. That's because when the moon covers the sun, a part of the sun that's always there, called the corona, becomes visible. Normally the corona is just washed out because the sun is so bright. When the moon blocks the sun, we actually see the corona, and that's pretty bright, and it makes the sky twilighty, not total night. So you will see only the very brightest stars and planets, but you will see some.
Oh, now I'm excited. I can't wait for that to get here.
Yeah, I've called that the twilight zone before. That's literally what it is. It's twilight happening at midday.
Oh, fun.
And it will be about midday, about 1 o'clock, 1:30-ish in Central Texas when this happens.
Okay, great. Well, I'm having a ball, but we're about to run out of time. So before we end, I want folks to know how they can support the museum. There's lots of ways they can do it. They can donate money, obviously. They can become members.
That's right.
They can even volunteer with y'all. So tell everybody what the museum web address is and how they can support the museum.
The museum's web address is hmns.org. Very simple. HMNS stands for Houston Museum of Natural Science.
And if I wanted to volunteer, what would I do?
For COVID reasons, we actually aren't letting too many volunteers in right now. But the other two options of donating to the museum and also becoming a member are easy to do on the website. There's a donate button on the website, and membership. You can click on membership and you can find information about how to become a member of the museum. Members get free admission to the main exhibit halls and discounted admission for everything else, the planetarium and the giant screen theater and the butterfly center and any special exhibitions not included in the main exhibit hall price. And if you come often enough, the membership pays for itself.
Oh yeah, obviously. And clearly there's enough stuff to do there that you wouldn't be able to do it all at once. You'd need to come back.
Exactly. I know that when I visit any museum in the country, I have to visit it twice to really see it. Everything is there. And so our museum is the same way. You have to visit us several times to see everything that's here. Our Paleo Hall, renovated about 9 years ago, is longer than several football fields. And you can spend hours in there.
Really cool.
Yeah, our brand new updated dinosaur hall, one of the best in the world.
Oh, a dinosaur hall?
Yeah, we call it the Paleo Hall because it covers all of ancient life, but mainly dinosaurs.
Oh, now I'm even more excited to get there. That's fabulous. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I'm really excited about your museum and the planetarium as well. So I really can't thank you enough for spending this time with us today and talking to us about the stars.
Okay.
For those of you who are with us on the Ministers Forum for the first time, let me say a few words about Unitarian Universalism. We're a religious tradition that celebrates the possibility of goodness within each human heart, the transformative power of love, and the clarifying force of reason. We believe that we need not think alike to love alike. We hope that you find these forums a source of connection, hope, and clarity. If you found this video to be helpful, please consider joining us for our weekly worship service. It is posted online each Sunday at 10:30 a.m. and features music and prayers in addition to a sermon. Dr. Bosson will be preaching again this week. And thank you to our staff for making this video possible. It was produced by Christian Holmes with Alma Viscara assisting with the editing. We will see you all online soon and in person as soon as it is possible for us to gather again. And please remember that no matter how isolated you feel, we are all in this together.